Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. My name is Grant Cotherman and I'm in the MIS program here at Oklahoma State. Today we'll be talking about moving towards zero trust architecture in a small college setting. So let's get started. So here's our agenda. First of all, we will cover what is zero trust, give a situation overview of the college, as well as key issues being faced by them. Then we'll get into some solutions, asset management solutions, permissions auditing solutions, user training, multi-factor authentication, and then next steps. So first of all, what is zero trust? Here are some quite wordy examples given out by the National Institute of Standards Technology. So zero trust provides a collection of concepts and ideas designed to minimize uncertainty in enforcing accurate least privilege per request access decisions in information systems and services in the face of a network viewed as compromised. Okay, so what then is a zero trust architecture? Well, a zero trust architecture is an enterprise's cybersecurity plan that uses zero trust concepts and encompasses component relationships, workflow planning, and access policies. Therefore, a zero trust enterprise is the network infrastructure, physical and virtual, and operational policies that are in place for an enterprise as a product of a ZTA plan. So if you're like me and you're not coming from a security or technology background for that matter, that's a lot and it's kind of hard to digest. So as a little simplified version, wrote out this that'll get us most of the way there. So the steps of moving towards zero trust, extremely simplified. First of all, understand what exists in terms of physical data and personal assets. We need to know what is on the network so that we can make sure those are protected. Build access policies around those assets that use the principle of least privileges. And the principle of least privileges basically says if you don't need something to do your job, you should not have access to it. And then finally, constantly assess and validate all activity on the network based on those permissions, as well as on metrics such as activity, location, and time. So just something on the network needs to continuously and always assess, does this person need to be doing this or not? So moving forward. So here's the situation overview. So it's a small liberal arts college in the Northeast, roughly 1,000 students, 200 employees. IT is understaffed with no employees focused on security. I believe they have around 10 people working in IT, maybe a bit less actually. That includes help desk, web services, so on and so forth. No one's focused on security completely. The university is not in solid financial standing, so that's something we'll have to think about when we look at solutions, that there's not a ton of money to go around. So here are the key issues that the college is facing, as told to me by staff. Faculty, staff, and students routinely fall for phishing attacks. Mentioned several examples of faculty giving away very, very personal information. So that's something we'll have to look at, find some solutions for. Assets are sprawled across the organization and often left unaccounted for. So data is all over the place, and they don't have a great way of managing that. Permissions are outdated and overreaching. There are people on the network that haven't been at the university or at the college in years, need to have their accounts removed. And there are also people that have access to things they really don't need to have access to. And finally, students do not currently use multi-factor authentication. While that's not necessarily a direct zero trust tool, it's a very important part of having defensive depth and security, having that multi-factor authentication, ensuring that those people are more likely to be who they say they are. So here's a really cool matrix model that was put out by CISA, which is Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. basically on the top we have different pillars of a security, so identity, device, network, environment, application workload, and data. And then as you move towards the bottom, we have further advanced levels of zero trust. So at the very top, it's just kind of the basic security measures you'd expect to be in place. And in this case, some of them aren't really in place. We're not completely in that traditional area necessarily for this college quite yet. But the goal is to hopefully move towards higher levels of security. Here's kind of where I outlined where we're at right now for this college. I don't have any information on the network environment and application workload, but I'm going to guess that it's probably about the same. So yeah. So first steps for the solutions. We need to find an asset management solution. IT needs to have a good understanding of what they have, what IT assets they have, what software is running, what operating systems on there, and be able to document that well, because that's going to be important for developing permissions and just knowing what's on the network, of course. And then permissions auditing, so find out who is on the network, who shouldn't be, what do they have access to, what do they need access to, and going through that might be a bit time consuming, but it really needs to be done. Train users on security issues. Like I said, a lot of faculty and students are falling for phishing attacks, and it's really important to build that defense in depth and to get buy-in for developing further into zero trust, to have the whole college have a little better security awareness and understanding that it's very important. Finally, implement multi-factor authentication for students. It's just a basic security measure that really needs to be met. So let's dig into some solutions, shall we? So first up, IT asset management tools. On the right, you can kind of see some of the rankings I found online. I kind of went through those, picked out some that weren't focused mostly on physical assets as some were, and I ended up with SolarWinds Web Help Desk, Landsweeper, and Manage Engines Asset Explorer. And for each of these, I kind of went through and looked at the live demos. Basically, just puts you in a fake network so you can play around. It looks like you're really toying around with the assets. So let's compare these. So SolarWinds Web Help Desk has a very broad functionality, and a lot of the focus is on help desk ticketing, as the name might imply. Pretty bare bones user interface, not the prettiest, may not matter. It starts between 820 and 1230. It's kind of hard to figure out a solid number, depending on the number of technicians that the college would need. So I estimated maybe 3, and that would put it at 1230. We have Manage Engines Asset Explorer. Much better design, much more intuitive. Had really cool functionality for managing non-IT assets, such as being able to print out barcodes to attach to things that like the library might be renting out to people, or like the iPads that get passed around classrooms. So it had functionality for managing those kinds of assets. I'd estimate the price between $1,200 and $1,500. Overall, Manage Engine was kind of tough to get an exact number with. And then finally, Landsweeper. I thought Landsweeper was by far the cleanest interface and the most intuitive, easy to use. Kind of really a pleasure to play around with. It's going to start a little more expensive, $2,000 per year. Really good drill down capabilities of looking into, looking at your assets and saying, okay, which ones are Linux, which ones have this operating system. It was really interesting. Go through, see what needs patching. But that was with all of them. The next, permissions auditing tools. So we have what I ended up with: SolarWinds Access Rights Manager, Manage Engines Active Directory Manager, and SolarWinds Permissions Analyzer. And just a reminder, this permissions auditing is very important for zero trust, as it gives us or make sure we can ensure least privileges with all of our users. So with SolarWinds Access Rights Manager, offers auditing, report generation, user provisioning, SharePoint and OneDrive auditing tools. Really, it covers all the bases, and it starts at around $2,000 a year. Manage Engine is very similar to SolarWinds Access Rights Manager, nearly identical, really. The tool, it also had tools for managing MS Exchange users, which I don't think the SolarWinds Access Rights Manager had. If it did, I did not find that. But I think that would be very helpful for the university as they use Microsoft Exchange. It'd be between $1,200 and $2,400 a year. Once again, hard to get an exact price down. And finally, as the budget option, it's free, is the SolarWinds Permissions Analyzer. And this is just absolute bare bones. It's going to show you for each user, what do they have access to, how do they have access to it, what groups are they in, all kinds of permissions. But very simple, very easy to use, but I would not recommend for the college if they're hoping to do something regularly or have report generation. Great for a one-time deal if they're on a budget, but definitely would want to go with one of the other two for long term as a zero trust measure. Now next is user training options. So kind of outlined a few different routes they could go for training users. First one is in-house, just using the IT team they have to conduct some training, outreach. Benefits of this is it's personal. It could be specific. It wouldn't be a broad education, it'd be very specific to the university setting. And it'd be free, aside from the time that the professionals would have to take out of their day to conduct the training. And then we also have KnowBe4, which I'm sure everyone's heard of. It's a security awareness training service. And it would be roughly $2,400 a year for employees only, so not really including students at all. And then the next one is GoFish. It's essentially a way that IT teams can test their employees on the ability to sniff out malicious behavior with emails. So basically, the team would create a phishing email and then see who clicks on it, who submits information to it, and that might give them some good information on how to go about training, who they should talk to. So next we have multi-factor authentication. So basically I ended up with two nearly identical services, Duo Authentication and Active Directory Self-Help. Duo is Cisco's product. We're very familiar with Duo from using it with OSU. And then AD Self-Help is Manage Engine's product, which we've been looking at Manage Engine tools. Both offer adaptive access policies as an add-on. Duo starts at $3 per user per month for basic service, so without the adaptive access policies, and then $6 per user per month for the advanced service. So you'd get those adaptive access policies that might be like, what IP is this? Where are you at? What time is it? And those are very important measures to take for implementing zero trust. I'm guessing that the Active Directory Self-Help has a similar price, but I would have to submit a quote to get to that point, and I did not do that. So for the sake of this, I'm going to assume the pricing is identical. So now we get into the important part, the recommendations. For the IT asset management tool, I really think I recommend Manage Engine's Asset Explorer. It seemed to offer the best balance between easy to use, also would be good for managing physical assets, and I think that'd be a great place to start. For permissions auditing, I would recommend starting with the SolarWinds Permissions Analyzer. Uh, it wouldn't be automated; it'd be slow, but for just a good start of getting permissions down, I think using a free tool wouldn't be a bad way to go, given the university's financial standing. And then later maybe move to Manage Engine's Active Directory Manager. So for user training, I do recommend that they conduct user training using the IT team for cost purposes, but also I think people would be more likely to listen. If you force someone to do a online training, they're probably just gonna rush through it. So having bi-yearly training and then maybe a monthly security awareness newsletter and maybe trying to get students involved in that, I think would be really helpful. I would also tentatively suggest that they try GoFish. Just make sure there's clear communication between IT and employees, because a problem that they might face with GoFish is that it seems like IT's out to get them, and that's not a place you want to be in the IT team. You don't want it to feel like IT against everyone else. So, and then for multi-factor authentication, I would say stick with the tool whose companies use the most. As in, if they're using Cisco, go with Duo. But if they're using Manage Engine as my suggestions, if they follow my suggestions, they might use that to implement basic multi-factor authentication for students, but use the advanced feature that has that adaptive access policies that's so important for Zero Trust with the faculty and staff, because those are the users that are going to have the rights and the access to the important stuff. So yeah. And then here we're going back to our model. I kind of put the little red rings around where we're at after the switch with my implementations. So you can kind of see moving into the advanced, away from the traditional, and then the next steps. Then for next steps, what I would suggest would be to look into ingress-egress filters as a way of kind of a data loss prevention implementation. Ensure data is encrypted at rest, and then ensure there's a centralized authentication measure that's continuously checking users on least privileges, as well as where they're at, what they're doing, etc. That would really move them into the advanced category on our matrix. And with that, I conclude. Thank you very much for listening. Take care.